Welcome to exclusive interview on Sputnik Arabic. Today in our studio we have a special guest, a legendary rock musician from the USA who holds a world record for the longest solo concert ever. He moved to Russia and now he's well known for his support for Palestine. Today we are going to have a fascinating conversation with an American rock star, Alex Carlin, on this and many other topics. Thank you, Mr. Carlin. We are glad to welcome you to our studio, Sputnik Arabic.
Thank you. It's fantastic to be here.
Yeah. So we'll start with an outlook on your musical career. And my first question is, how did you start as a musician? And what could you say about how did you develop this interest in music?
Well, yeah, it was very natural because I was in California, in the San Francisco, Berkeley in the 1960s, and that I was born in 1957. So by the time we moved from Chicago to New York to San Francisco, it was already 1964. And so you have to understand, at that time, everything was music. It was everywhere where you looked. There were incredible guitar players and singers and bands and psychedelic bands in San Francisco and in Berkeley. And there was Hell's Angels motorcycles on the streets. And it was just music and rock and roll everywhere you looked. So it wasn't even a choice for me. It was like, of course I'm going to be playing guitar, and the Beatles came out, and it was just, that ended, any questions about music. When the Beatles arrived on the radio and on the television, we were just like, oh, incredible. In fact, my mom in 1964 brought home the first Beatle record to the house, and my brother and I just played this record 24 hours a day. So I was 7 years old, right? So, it just immediately was the one. It wasn't any alternative. It was just music.
I can imagine this atmosphere of the 60s, 70s. It's
absolutely.
Iconic, I would say.
Yeah, fantastic. Black people, Mexicans, white people, everybody together. The whole thing was beautiful. It was just rock and roll was really the main thing.
So my following question is, which musicians influenced you most at the beginning of your career?
Well, no question the Beatles, but then Jimi Hendrix came out and it was like on fire, like on AM radio and popular top 10 radio. There was Jimi Hendrix music just creating incredible excitement and feeling and movement and you just knew that was really the most amazing thing. And then you start getting introduced to more and different kinds of music through rock and roll, and you go back to the blues and Robert Johnson and all these incredible music. And then I was taking classical piano lessons from a man called Roy Bogus, who actually happened to be in Russia at the Tchaikovsky, competitions and things, and he was teaching me Rachmaninoff and Chopin. So I was learning piano from the age 6, actually, but so I had both sides. I had the classical side and the rock and roll side.
Yeah, that's great, by the way. So you are a bright representative of rock music of the 1970s, 1980s. So what could you say in general about this period of the history of rock music?
Yep.
And with which famous rock musicians did you work with?
Did I what with?
Yeah, maybe collaborate, I would say.
Well, I mean, okay, the Rubinoos were pretty I was an original member of the Rubinoos band, which had top 10 hits, top 40, top 10 in England and top 40 in America. And they were Tommy Dunbar, John Rubin. We had this band called the Rubinoos. And they still exist. They just played in headline pop festivals in Spain, and so people can look up the Rubinoos for a famous band. And I've collaborated with people like, I have a video with Steven Tyler from Aerosmith when we were singing together in New York, a song. The various people. It's it was more like. I've played so many concerts in Russia, though, in the last 10 years with, various different bands. Like we were at for example, the Sevastopol Bike Show, playing with lots of famous bands down there. Kuzmin, we were playing with just a lot of different Russian bands.
That's great. Your experience is so impressive, I would say. So, and next question is, you are known for setting a world record for the longest solo concert in history, which started 32 hours. It's an amazing fact. So my question is, how could you describe this unique experience in general?
You know, you'll never forget it. It's really exciting because, you know, for me, just not sleeping one night is not really a problem. You know, I enjoyed playing the 32 hours. It was a lot of fun. In fact, there's a 32-hour MP3 I created with a couple microphones. It sounds really good.
It's amazing, yeah.
So, you know, you have to understand, like, I started playing, and it was broadcast around the world and to my friends in America. I did it in Poland, okay? I was living in Poland at the time, and my friends in America were, like, writing me, like, oh, Alex, you know, I started hearing you play, and then I went to sleep, and then I went to work, and I got up, and then I went to sleep again, and you're still playing, and I woke up, and you're still playing, you know?
Yeah, you brought this certificates, yeah? You can show it too.
Certificate. Right here, this is really what happened was we had to prove it to the Guinness people in London. It was because so you have to understand that most of the hard work for that was in the preparation and in the proof. Playing 32 hours to me was no problem. In fact, when it was over, we went to a carnival in this town for 6 more hours, and then I went to sleep, you know. But the preparation where you have to have observers and they have to, you know, sign documents that everything was done by the rules. You know, like, for example, when you finish a song, you have 30 seconds to start the next song. So you have to prove that. And then there's a rule, like you had to have 10 people in the room at all times. So if in the middle of the night, you had to go out on the street and pull in, like, guys from the street to be in the room, you know. But then it was the biggest story in Poland that day. You know, during the daytime, the prime time, there was lights and cameras and news people, and it was exciting. So it would go through cycles. But it's interesting, if it's sort of like when you play for 32 hours, by like the 25th hour, you're kind of reaching a higher spiritual plane. You know, you're getting into a very interesting mental space from just doing that. You know, it's like a meditation or something, like some kind of a kung fu, where you just start to feel amazing, and things start to be magical.
Yeah, that reminds me of this psychedelic rock topics you talked about.
Yeah, and absolutely. It was psychedelic in a natural way. It was wonderful. And like I say, it's a pretty good sounding MP3 for 32 hours.
Oh, that's amazing. And we're moving to questions about Russia. When did you visit Russia for the first time?
Well,
and how did you fall in love with this country?
Yeah, I definitely fell in love with it. Back in 1989, I was with a band in Berlin, and the wall was still up. It had, you know, and then, but we had some concerts in Berlin, and I have a producer in San Francisco. His name is Dan Alexander, and Dan said, Alex, I want you to go to Moscow and look for these high-level microphones that were made in East Germany and Austria, like Telefunken and Neumann, because Melodia Records in it's still the Soviet Union, right? Soviet Union, Melodia Records was the biggest purchaser of these microphones, and I want to buy them from them. So he sent me on a mission to Moscow, right? So I went there for a week with an acoustic guitar, and I visited Melodia Records, but during the day I was in Melodia, but in the evening my friend said, you got to go to the Arbat. So I went to the Arbat with my guitar, and I started meeting people and playing in front of the Vakhtanga Theater, and we just started having a fantastic time, and every night for 7 days, people would actually give us, you know, rubles and stuff, and we would take the money and go to the Belgrade Hotel, and give it to the dejurny, some girl working there, and she would come back with everything for our kvartirnik that night. So we had like 7 consecutive all-night parties with fish and bread and vodka and everything, and music. And so, of course, I fell in love with this place. It was the most fantastic place I'd ever been, you know. But there was a photograph taken of me playing on the Arbat in front of Vakhtanga, and that appeared a couple months later in the biggest newspaper in San Francisco, in the entertainment section, this huge photo of me with an article. And at the same time, this is how I got invited back to Russia, because this theater group called Arlekin, the Arlekin Theater, which is run by a great impresario whose name was Sergei Melkonyan, Armenian guy who is the director of this huge theater based in Dzerzhinsky, actually. And he was in San Francisco with Oleg Bernov, the main actor and musician there, and they were in San Francisco trying to bring their theater group to America, and they went to the biggest theater in San Francisco called ACT, American Conservatory Theater, and by luck, at the moment, the director of the theater was my mom, right, Joy Carlin, and they walked into her office, and she said, took out the newspaper article and showed the photo of me on the Arbot, and Oleg Bernov said, I know that guy. I was there partying with him and singing with him. So they met me and invited my American band called Alien Beachhead with Peter French and Bill Macbeth. They invited us to the Soviet Union for 6 months on a work visa of touring all the way to Baikal, the Ukrainsky SSR, to Leningrad. We played everywhere for 6 months, and our video was on Dvazhdy Dva, the commercial channel at the time in the Soviet Union. So 6 months in 1990, and I really fell in love with Russia at that point. I was just like, oh my, every day was an adventure, wonderful, just the people meeting, and it was a crazy time, of course, here. Right before the Soviet Union ended, everything was changing. We were participating in things in Siberia, like in Novosibirsk, for example. We were part of these all-night vigils trying to get people out of jail and different things, where we were playing in these amazing events. And it was the point where everything was in fluid, because it was about to change from Soviet Union back to Russia. So we experienced that. But then after 6 months, we actually ended up on a train to Berlin, and we hadn't seen a newspaper in 6 months, and we didn't know it was Einheit. It was the day of unification of Germany. We came out of the train station. There was 1 million people in the street in Berlin as the wall was coming down, and, they were unifying Germany. So we were in the middle of all these historical moments. But that was 1990 in October when it ended. We were there from April to October. But then it actually took me 20 years to come back in. But I was based before that in Poland, as I was saying, like in Krakow. And people started organizing shows for me in Moscow about 12 years ago or so when I started coming back. They said, Alex, you got to come back to Russia now. We're organizing shows for you in Moscow. And so when I came back, I realized, oh yeah, this is the place I really want to be. I just feel a real bond here, a real incredible feeling in Russia for all these reasons.
Okay, that's amazing. Your experience of participating in these historical events in Russia and Germany, it's amazing. It's like very, I appreciate it so, because for me it's history, for you it's experience.
Yeah, it's just my day-to-day life, right? I'm right in, like Zelig, or I'm right in the middle of all these historical moments.
That's incredible. Yeah. So my next question is, why did you decide to move to Russia?
No, I'm just saying, like, if you compare it, I mean, I loved and appreciated growing up in the 60s in America. So that's when it was the moment of all this incredible music, and it still is a great musical place. America, USA, I call it the United States of rock and roll. That's how I think about USA. It's the music, it's, in the movies and things like that. But for day-to-day living, it's just, I don't know, it's the people. Russia's, of all the countries, I've been around the world, I've been in, so many countries. But when I come back into Russia, I just get this really amazing feeling, and that I just want to be here more than other places. It's the best. I would call it the flow. Like every day I get up, somebody wants me to do an interview like this, or a concert, or something going on, a party, some social thing, or some even political thing, like bonding with the Palestinian people I met. Like so many things happen here that it's just the best place, relatively. I love being in Africa. I spend a lot of time in Africa. It's just in Brazil. I love Turkey and Istanbul. I love USA. But if I compare it on a day-to-day living every day, I'd rather be in Russia.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
So you're talking about your support for Palestine. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
And what could you say about the importance of the global solidarity with the Palestinian people? And how could you describe yourself as an activist?
My family, it dates back as, we're Jewish people, right? I mean, I grew up with blonde hair and blue eyes. And, my family was from what is now Belarus 150 years ago. They all moved to Chicago. So, it's like, I don't know, if you look at my DNA, there's probably a lot of Swedish or whatever. But as far as I know, my ethnic background is Jewish. I don't know anything about religion. I can't tell you anything about Judaism, but I can tell you that my family, it's sort of like, New York, Upper West Side, Woody Allen kind of Jewish intellectual artists, academics. So we have this, I know something about Jewish sort of ethnic flavor and things like that. But then when this war, when it got really bad in Palestine, and I started to think, well, wait a minute, they're doing this in my name. Like the Israeli government is murdering Palestinians, genocide, and they're saying it's somehow connected to Jewish people again. And I said, no, that's so wrong, right? And of course, a lot of Jews in New York, they had a whole movement called Not in Our Name. And they took over train stations and they're saying they have T-shirts, Not in Our Name. There's a lot of Jews who are opposed to the genocide and what's going on in Palestine. So I started getting more and more interested, and I would, read Noam Chomsky, read, Norman Finkelstein, Jewish people who are writing to support the Palestinian people who are being murdered, right? So my role is, then I was actually, for a friend of mine in Russia, I was writing a theme song for BRICS, and that got me involved with those people, introduced me to the Palestinians in Moscow. And it turns out that Russia's given a huge palatial building in the center of Moscow to Palestine for their embassy, and I started meeting them and bonding as friends with people. Like there's this guy, Abdullah Issa, who's like an ambassador, who's an artist, and he started singing his songs in my friend's studio, and we started just being friends. And I was attending events, and I was going to support groups, and I ended up writing a song.
Oh, that's amazing.
That I'd like to, because then I report every year for the United Nations in the climate conference. I was in Brazil like a month ago, and I came up with this song that started out as a song that has to do with a peace plan I could discuss, that I'm trying to come up with creative peace plans to end the genocide. But the song that I ended up writing was about worldwide solidarity support for Palestine to try to end this genocide. Because, if you look at it, it's like this thing, it's just hard to even have a normal life and wake up every day without thinking, what can I do to stop this murder that's going on? It's just outrageous,
Yeah.
And it's a combination of the Israeli government and the USA government. So in other words, I'm being represented by, the Jewish side and the USA side, because I'm a USA citizen.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that it's the USA government that is partners with the Israeli government to make this genocide happen. So I know that, if the USA stopped giving it the money and support, that it would be very difficult for the Israeli government to continue the genocide. They're partners with the USA government. So I feel responsible on both sides. So in other words, so that's why I feel like I have some duty to at least show up at these events or try. And I even have some creative ideas to actually end it with peace plans, nonviolent, peace plans to end the genocide. And part of it is with music.
Yeah.
And so especially, I had this idea of how, I was in the Amazon region of Brazil, and how the Amazon people could symbolize the worldwide solidarity to end the genocide.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I would like to listen to this song about Palestine.
And the idea is, I'll play the song, but the idea is you can imagine a video, and we had famous people singing it and make a whole movement of
that's great.
Amazonia for Palestinia, worldwide solidarity gonna set them free. Amazonia for Palestinians, we're gonna stop the genocide from the river to the sea. decision. We're gonna use Mutual with decision. Yeah, Amazonia for Palestinia. The gathering the tribes to set them free. Amazonia for Palestinians. To stop the genocide from the river to the sea. We don't want to lose any more land, so we're gonna draw a line in the sand. Yeah, we're gonna join you in the fight, 'cause we know the whole world knows we're right, totally right. We're gonna give Gaza a brand new theme. We're gonna change the nightmare to a dream. Amazonia for Palestinians. Yeah, we're gonna mobilize the whole world to set it free. Amazonia for Palestinians. We're gonna liberate from the river to the sea. We're gonna change the channel from war to peace. Gaza will go from famine to feast. Amazonia is coming to the Middle East.
Thank you for this incredible song. It was amazing.
Yeah, I actually had an earlier version called Cornucopia, and I just want to describe it because it was tied into this creative idea. Like, my idea is, like, if you think creatively, how can we stop this non-violently,
Yeah.
right? So I had this idea that I was talking to Palestinians, and they like it generally, which is the idea is that you create a model little demonstration zone
Yeah.
where you have Israeli families and Palestinian families working together in like some business, like import export. You create a business, doesn't matter what it is, but you just create a demonstration zone that Israelis and Palestinians can actually work together, live together, be friends together, and sing this song together,
Yeah.
and make a video, and expand that, and just say, look. This whole thing is wrong. This whole war thing, this whole killing thing is just completely changed the channel, totally. And just show the world that, no, because because Palestinians and Jews have, lived together for centuries without killing each other, right? It's like it's historically true. So somehow create a movement that expands until you just... So, and then, but of course you have to, I was singing this song for some people in California who just turned out to be Gazan people. They were from Gaza City. And they said, Alex, we think that's a great idea, except we need justice now. There's been so much stealing and murder and killing and genocide. We need to set up some kind of like South African court that brings people to justice for some of this stuff. But at the same time, yeah, we do need to demonstrate that we can change the channel and have an expanding movement to just show that we can live together. We don't have to have this, murder thing. This genocide can stop right now. But of course, USA has to stop giving money for it.
Yeah, that's true.
There's no question we have to stop USA government from giving all that money to make it happen. It's just absolutely, it has to happen.
So you mentioned crucial things about ways how can we stop this awful genocide.
Right.
So this is really important to mention, by the way. And this activity of people of different nations is of key importance to stop this. And my following question is... in your opinion, what is the role of Russian media like Sputnik in the modern world?
But the role of Sputnik and what?
And Russian media in general, I would say.
Okay, well, here's the thing. I got to say, because that brings up the point of, like, I just, have a lot of passion for being an American in Russia, just to show the citizen diplomacy side, and the fact that I'm just friends with, so many people in every level of Russian society, and I'm communicating with my American friends, and, and so I'm sending, they understand what I'm doing, and I'm transmitting everything I can back to America to show that, it's all about Americans and Russians normalizing friendship and normalizing this kind of brotherhood and sisterhood and cooperation as societies and people, and moving, and that's where Sputnik and RT and things like that are so important, and it's so crazy and tragic and horrible that they ban. Like I'll send a story from RT, and my friend says, "Oh no, it says I can't watch it because it's some rule or something ridiculous censorship of something like RT." And I think Sputnik, it might be the same problem. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's true. The same problem.
But I'm doing everything I can to send them things. Russian media needs to be liberated from censorship, number one. So everything that, I think, I have friends like Norman Solomon, and I know a lot of great people have been doing RT shows. And I'm not sure about Sputnik in America right now, but it's exactly what needs to happen. I mean, Sputnik is exactly what the world needs, is shows like we're doing now. Mm-hmm. And to break through, because in America, it's really brutal how, America is just genius at propaganda. It's evil and it's tragic, it's horrible. But the American system of propaganda is so sophisticated and they're so good at it. They invented it, actually. I could talk about the origin of modern propaganda. It really came from pre-World War I, when they didn't even think it would work, but they tried to sell people things they didn't want for capitalism, just to make money. And they started developing these ideas of propaganda to sell silly things. And then World War I happened, and they said, "Oh, let's try to make Americans hate Germans to enter World War I." And it worked, right? So Americans have since, for 100 years, have been the most incredible, skilled practitioners of propaganda. And today it's really bad. It's like when I visit America and you turn on any television channel, you just get the most wrong, unfactual stuff, but it's just so well presented. It just fools people, right? So it's really important to break through that from the American to the American people. And the best way I can do that is just, send them videos or whatever, talk to them. Because Americans and Russians need to be friends. And it's like, that's so important to avoid World War III, avoid nuclear bombs, avoid nuclear war. And one of the ways I want to mention, if we have time to talk about it, is this climate thing, this climate solution that I've been exposed to by working on as a journalist, actually, in every United Nations climate conference for the last 14 years. And there's a really beautiful way that Russians and Americans can work together to restore plankton, which is the most important solution to climate. We can talk about that next interview if we don't have time now. But it's just an example of finding ways that Americans and Russians can work together on good, positive things for the world. Because Russia's already doing some really fantastic things with their forests and with environmental things. They're doing some excellent custodian of the planet themed things. Russia actually has some very surprisingly good policies on the environment, and nobody knows about that. America doesn't know. They're doing better than America on a lot of things, but we can work together on this stuff.
That's true. So that's really important issues about this cooperation between Russia and the USA. So this is very up to date nowadays, by the way. And my last question, would you agree with the statement that music can be described as a universal language which unites the people of different nations?
Yeah. Well, that's really funny because I wrote this song recently, and I'm trying to develop a genre that I mix Russian language and English language, but it was exactly about that subject. I could play a bit for you.
Okay.
It goes something like, Muzika это наш общий язык. I have to say, for people who don't know Russian, it means music is our common language. Muzika это наш общий язык. Muzika это наш общий язык. Общий язык. some tongue, baby. Give me some long, baby. Sometime the best words better off sung, baby. You just wanna say it, but you just can't convey it. Just pick up your guitar and just play it, yeah. 'Cause musica è nasce, oh, she has it. Musica è nasce, oh, she has it, oh, she has it. Chats you can't understand. Just pick up your guitar, make your son extend. Come on, musica è nasce, oh, she has it. Musica è nasce, oh, she has it, oh, she has it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carlin, for this amazing and impressive interview, I would say, for these impressive songs, which describes these emotions of friendship, unity between different nations, and solidarity. Thank you so much, Mr. Carlin. We were pleased to have you as our special guest in an exclusive interview on Sputnik Arabic. Thank you so much for your participation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is when you say it's Sputnik Arabic, I just want to say one last time again to everybody in the Arab world that there are Jews, especially in the United States of America, who completely understand this genocide is totally wrong, 100%, and we're standing with you and supporting and doing it. And I'm trying to actually come up with creative, new, positive plans and ideas to actually do something to end this genocide. I just want to make that very clear. American Jews for Palestinian liberation and success in ending the genocide and living a good life.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carlin.